Episode 100 of the Printer Games podcast. I'm one of
Jehoshaphat.
your hosts, Jefferson J. Thacker, also known as Param, and I'm joined by
Kristen Sauer. It's also known as Seventh Mastery.
2024 is here.
It
New
is.
Year's resolutions are in the air.
Yes, sort of.
This episode, we're going to be talking about the projects we want to do. And a lot of them will have to do with 3D printing in some tangential or very, very, very direct way.
Very direct. I don't know what
Yes.
this tangential stuff is.
And that'll be our later topic. But Kristen, any cool 3D printing projects you've been doing over the holidays?
Over the holidays, I did do some tokens that I've been using for some status counter stuff. And that's been fun. Very, very multi-usable. I have been kind of moving away. I was doing a lot of Monster of the Week, sort of not the actual game Monster of the Week, but here's my physical D&D game that week. I'm going to print something for that. And then it was print, paint, go, print, paint, go, print, paint, go. And you know what that resulted in?
What?
Not very much time. And it resulted in where does Kristen sacrifice stuff? Anybody want to guess? Anybody? Organizational deficit. So what ended up happening? Lots of brand new, beautifully painted minis. No good storage option. I mean, I have them, but I didn't. Yeah. So do you know what's happened to about half of those beautiful minis? They are shattered to pieces because I left them in my car.
No. Oh no.
Yes.
So I know me and you disagree on the value of a printed mini.
Right.
But I don't think we disagree on the value of a painted mini, because that certainly has time and effort and personality in it.
Yeah, and you do things. I'm a Bob Ross disciple, happy little accidents, happy accidents. And so sometimes I do a painting thing and it just turns out really, really well, but it wasn't on purpose. Mm-hmm. And so I go back and try to replicate it. And I'm like, how did I mess this up the first time to get the result I got? Right. So I have to try to recreate an accident, and that's not good. That is rough.
Roberto says children, they make the best sacrifice.
Yes, we
do not endorse child sacrifice
please
here.
Treat your children well.
Podcast.
Yes, right, please. But we've got James, Alberto, Nicholas Henley, Rick, Damie, a bunch of folks in here already tonight.
I have some good news.
Yeah?
Related.
Yeah.
In the weird way. So you remember that really beautiful high elf on eagle thing that got shattered into 1,000 pieces, and I was much sad.
Mm-hmm.
I was able to save something from that piece.
Oh.
The eagle.
You saved the eagle.
There was 2 eagles in the diorama that got destroyed.
Yeah, I think I remember that.
And I was able to extract and rebase 1 eagle.
So you had some work. I mean, the paint up on the wings and stuff is fantastic. So I'm really glad that happened.
So that I still have 1 lovely piece to that. But yeah, when you lose a painted mini, it is a sad state.
Yeah, and I lost a lot.
Try to find the best resins, but I'm distracting you from now.
That's okay. It's okay. So I have walked away from 2023. A little less frantic, because frantic is equaling basically I might as well have bought a pre-paint because it's going to get destroyed. And, and who wants that? I mean, okay, if you're using pre-paints at home, bless you. That's fast. I did it the other week. I ran out of time because I've been running around holiday prep and plans. Mm-hmm. And so I ended up going and getting a monster from the Pathfinder 2nd edition line. That's this 3-headed centipede thing. I forget what it's called. It's really neat. Decent paint job, but it's still a pre-paint. And I knew I could have done better, right? I knew I could have done better. I was looking at some of the creature caster stuff I've got. I was looking at a lot of the other, assorted tentacle horrors that I have. And
pre-painted long bear right here.
Yes, and long bear, nice. So yeah, I have learned though that maybe being frantic and trying to, rush through content has a different sacrifice, because it was cool. I was literally my Saturday game has brand new players in it, so they're used to brand new custom painted mini, new design, brand new thing every week, or every other week, at least it's bi-weekly. And yeah, wow. I don't know if we can say that comment on air.
We absolutely can't.
But yeah, that skipped my brain a little bit.
Okay.
But we do have a question though, really quick.
Okay, so this is interesting. Oh, also, to all of you who've just gotten 3D printers this Christmas, congratulations. Welcome to the community. We will have lots of advice. If you have any questions about any 3D printing stuff, send them here in comments and we'll add them to the questions we answer on the podcast. That is more than happy and welcome. And one of those questions has come in from Damager?
Damie, yeah.
Okay. Damie has what's better, filament or resin? And the answer is neither. They both have unique properties. They basically it's a different tool for different jobs. If you want to print miniatures, like little tiny things with lots of lovely details, you want to go resin. Resin is wonderful. It's able to print at much higher resolutions and get really cool, intricate details that you just cannot um, that you absolutely cannot that you absolutely cannot um, capture in FDM without amazing efforts. Even the best FDM print will not be able to get close to even a moderately good resin print. Though there are some people who do as a hobby. I don't want to. They do really good FDM prints, and it's kind of like a stunt. It's really impressive to see it when somebody has dialed in an FDM printer good enough to do uh, miniatures very well, but they'll still be very slow to do it because to get that high detail, you have to print very slowly and one mini at a time. But where FDM really shines is when you want to print something big.
Yes, for sure.
This is my prop for FDM printing. Sorry, I keep reusing it. But if you want to print something nice and big and impressive for the game table, it's like FDM is great because the detail is not terrible. It's still pretty decent detail if you dial in your FDM printer. It's also much more. It doesn't warp as much when you're printing it, so you get much more dimensionally accurate prints. And if you dial in your printer very well, you'll get almost dimensionally perfect prints. So, like if you're doing game templates and stuff, FDM all the way, and also it's great because FDM stuff is strong like rock, very hard to break, and very durable. And you have lots of different materials you can choose to FDM print with, and it's fun. So it has its own challenges.
I'll be talking about FDM more in this episode. So
yeah. So like stuff like if you wanted to print like gaming cases or paint racks and stuff like that, FDM is the way to go for sure.
I have lost chat, Param, just so you're aware. I don't know if
you've lost chat
entirely. Yeah.
It's okay. Sorry.
It's okay. Might not have been a bad idea, all things considered. So it's good.
So also Davey asked, so I was looking at one Mars 3 better, the Mars 4 Max. Okay, so the Mars 3 is a wonderful starter printer. And it is capable of doing incredibly high detail prints. I highly recommend it. The Mars 4 Max is a rebranded Saturn SE with a few different parts. And that's a bigger printer that is an okay starter printer. But it's a bigger printer, and bigger printers take a little bit more use. They're prone to more failures, slightly more failures, so more getting used to. So I don't usually recommend starting with a mid-range printer, though the newer Saturn 3s are nice and wonderful, so you might be able to get away with starting with a Saturn 3, but I wouldn't go back to a Saturn 2 era or a Saturn 1 era as your first printer.
Right.
Mhm.
So that was where I was at in my painful lesson about mismanaging my time and resulting in losing all of my stuff. What have you been working on? We haven't got to you yet.
Oh, I have been planning a project. I think I mentioned I'm busy designing my own personal uh, geom screen because I want to get back into doing more DMing and more RPG
Mm,
stuff. So
okay.
I'm making my own custom geom screen that I'm going to 3D print, and I want it to be very very exact to it's going to be my perfect geom screen. It's not going to be everybody's ultimate geom screen. This isn't going to be some giant ass castle with like dice towers and stuff built into it.
Right.
Like I've had those geom screens. I've had the official D&D one, the
Hmm.
promotional one that they sent to game stores. I've had all sorts of crazy DM screens over the years, but for my particular gaming style, I like small screens that are very low profile, easy to store, and so I'm going to be designing and 3D printing the one that is perfect for Perrin. And
Cool.
once I design it and get all the files ready, I don't know what I'll do with it.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, your spell deck was a thing, and that changed a whole lot of people's games. So maybe you'll make your files available or sell them. Who knows?
yeah.
But are you thinking
Plus,
more functional than less pretty? Or are you going to try to go for a blend of aesthetic and
oh,
use?
pretty is always awesome when you can have it. So I don't see why I have to give up function to gain pretty. It's going to be very pretty and also very functional.
Okay. Um,
I think I want to go with magnets. Magnets make everything awesome.
Magnets are
But well, I
good.
know I have a form factor in mind, and not to give too much away from it. But basically, I want each panel to be somewhere between 8 to 10 inch squares, and it to be a 4 panel design, so nice and low profile, and and easy to very quickly store and put into your game master bag.
Hmm.
Um, and it's going to be nice. And I might do it. I'm really inspired by the Castle and Crusades screen that is kind of like this, and it's split into two mini screens, so it's like two panels, two panels. I don't know if I'll do it linked or if I'll do it as two separate two panels, but I love magnets, so it might not be an either or situation.
Hmm. Okay. Okay. I'm intrigued by these hints, and I will
Hmm.
just have to see what it is you come up with.
Hmm. Also, I'm really wanting to get my Estes snails back out.
Your what?
And when you use Blender, there's two things you need to do: your Edistries and your Estes snails.
Okay. I don't know anything about Blender, so.
Okay. The two most important keys when you're modeling in Blender is that E extrudes a surface so that you can go pull out a surface, and S scales the surface that you are holding. And with
Mhm.
those two wonderful keys, you can 3D model incredible things.
Hmm. Interesting.
Herberto Vale, any chance you're going to Adepticon? Absolutely, I am.
I am probably not,
Aw.
but
Would love to spend Adepticon with you, Kristen.
that would be
No,
really
but
cool. But
yeah,
until
I'm
there's,
going.
a scholarship, probably not happening.
Yeah, I'm bouncing up to Adepticon to spend the whole week. It will be a work trip, unfortunately, but I'll probably also have a lot of fun while I'm there because there's going to be a lot of extra time on the books that aren't work related. Mhm.
Gotcha. I mean,
Roberto, yes, yes, yes. Good to see you. Would be awesome to see you. Anybody who's going to be at Adepticon, let me know. I would love to meet as many of you as I can. All righty. So, what's your next project you're working on? Let's move into the future.
okay,
Let's
moving into
actually
the
start the
future.
topic. What are we wanting to do? 2024 is coming where I'm thinking about like all the things I wish I changed, I wish I could do better, all the cool projects. I know like Games Workshop's always like New Year, New Army, things like that. What is your projects you hope to maybe get done in 2024? And I want to preface this before this episode starts. This is aspirational.
Yes.
These are not promises.
These are not promises. That is absolutely, especially before I'm going to start. I have made a whole bunch of new friends from TikTok, like a whole bunch. Some of them are in chat right now.
Yay!
But a whole bunch of new friends, and a lot of those friends are very much into the practical side of 3D printing. And I have always just been like, let's do minis, let's do fancy things, let's do fragile things that are going to get obliterated in my car because I'm but there's some real like practical stuff. And on TikTok, someone sent me a very practical controller stand, and I have recently got back into online gaming quite a bit. Obviously I stream Magic and I do other stuff. I talk about D&D and stream D&D on TikTok, but I've also been playing a lot of Final Fantasy 14. And because of my nervous issues, I have some nerve disorders, and I've been trying to use a controller like a PS5 controller. And so because of that,
it's supposed to be a great option for that game.
It is. And that game is like fully cross, whatever. You have to buy it for each system you play it on, but you could jump if you have it unlocked for that system, you can jump your characters. Like I could go up and play on my PS5, for instance, if I wanted to, right? Mm-hmm. As long as you've paid a gazillion times for it. But you pay for the access point, I guess, is the way it works. But because of that, somebody sent me this controller thing, about 4 controllers each. So there are households out there that would need like 4 or 5 of them, depending on how many machines the people have. So, so I probably will do that as my first big FDM print this year. How about your first feature print?
So my first project that I'm going to be working on is, well, I'm wanting to get a lot more wargaming in. Both for professional reasons and also just because I really like it.
Right.
So I'm going to try and boot up a local, regularly scheduled wargaming club up in our area, based out of one of the local game stores, much like I started up Pathfinder Society and many other game groups in the past. But the best way to do that and to make it work is to have tables and terrain stuff at those stores so that people can pop in and play when they want to, even when I'm not there. Mm-hmm. Sure, I could just every week haul all the, like, I've got enough terrain here in the game room to outfit 4 or 5 themed game tables if I wanted to, and to a nice 12 to 24 pieces of terrain per table of significant size if I needed to do that. I used a lot of my terrain to outfit 2 tables at Spiel, for instance.
Right.
But I don't want to just haul that in, and when I'm not there, they won't be able to use that terrain. So I'm going to basically wanting to print up a couple of sets of themed gaming terrain to just give to said store for use of anybody who wants to use it. So I need to build up a couple of gaming tables worth of terrain and gaming mats and stuff, so that people so that as I slowly build up this wargaming community, they will have nice, awesome terrain to play on.
Right. Makes sense. Mm-hmm. So you're going to not just level up yourself, but you're going to level up the entire local war game scene. I mean, that makes sense, right? Like if you're going to like do the same thing with D&D, right? If you're going to do that, train other DMs if you want your whole community to grow, right? So,
and I did this once before when I was super big into HeroClix.
Mm-hmm.
We built a full 3 foot by 3 foot completely 3D city at HeroClix scale, like with
Wow.
skyscrapers, and
Wow.
all the skyscrapers had the grid on them so that you could
What?
be on the buildings.
So did you design those buildings yourself?
No, but I
No.
did design. It was Fat Dragon Games buildings,
Mm.
so I was involved in the production, but I didn't do the design
Right,
myself.
right, right. And
Um,
then did you just rescale them to fit that grid?
no, they were purpose made for that.
Oh, they were actually made for HeroClix.
Yeah.
That's pretty
So
sweet.
like we built like I think it was like 12 different big buildings, and then like a McDonald's, and then we went and got like a whole bunch of cars and stuff, and all of those little bric-a-brac that you need to make this work.
Mhm.
And that is kind of how I'm digging it.
Yeah, no, I dig it. So you're gonna do the same thing, but with like wargaming. Are you going to be trying to do multi-theme? Are you going to be trying to do like sci-fi only? Or going to be is it
So
going to be
I'm mostly intending, like, I'm a fantasy nerd, and I'm gonna try to push the fantasy aspects for my local crew. So
Mhm.
the tables I'll probably build will be, here's a forest table, here's a desert table, that sort of thing. And also some of those basic core terrains will also serve double duties for when we do sci-fi stuff, so that
right, right.
you always need like green forest, and then putting down a bunch of like drop pods and stuff will make a convincing sci-fi table, and the forest stuff with an oil refinery on it will also be sci-fi.
Okay. Okay. You said, do you already have the oil refinery? Have I seen that, or is this a new one?
Hmm?
Do you?
Oh
Is
no,
this
I'm
something else?
being
Okay.
exaggerating
Oh, okay.
about potential projects. I think I do have an oil refinery kit that I haven't put together though.
Gotcha, gotcha.
Mhm.
I still wanted to get what is it? Stellar Artisan, I think is the set that I didn't get because I was a little strapped at the time. I kind of regret that one because it went up in price a lot. Those files did.
Ooh.
So, but
Well, like, so what are the two things are you going to do? Are you going to suck it up and get it, wait for a sale, or just wait for somebody else to make something and get it?
so that last one's a good option, right? Because it's going to be
Mm-hmm.
somebody else who does that. But there is also the fact that like they'll probably do another Kickstarter, and I find that oftentimes, particularly with terrain companies, waiting for their next Kickstarter, they often throw in their old Kickstarter at their old Kickstarter price. So the
Mm-hmm.
question is, was that successful enough for that company to do another Kickstarter? And I'm not sure, because if you don't know this, if you're listening for the first time or you're newer to the show, sci-fi projects don't ever quite do quite as well. If they do, it's a rare exception
Mm-hmm.
than fantasy projects. It's just
Mm-hmm.
how the industry is, which is unfortunate. But like, unless you're GW, unless you're James Workshop, you probably aren't landing big bucks in sci-fi, and so a lot of these projects, these boutique projects for terrain and stuff for sci-fi terrain, don't actually continue to materialize, right? Like they struggle, and then maybe they do one more and then you just never see that company again. So I'm hoping that's not the case here. I've still seen a lot of their stuff getting printed and used, and their Instagram account's still very active, so I'm crossing my fingers that we're going to get another campaign, but don't know, right? So, but it does segue nicely into my next one if you're done for that.
I am done for that one. Go ahead.
Okay, so I am definitely going to be popping over Cast and Play, who I have had a love-hate relationship with their minis. I love them because they're very animated, but they're also super cartoony, and sometimes they're just too cartoony for me. That I am looking at that and going, well, what about their terrain stuff? I really love the half wall stuff. We geeked out about it. I want to say on Terrain Essentials 2, we were really excited about some of the half walls they did. And they did Terrain Exteriors, which is Terrain Essentials 3, and that's finally just finished delivering, I think, just recently. So I've got a whole bunch of new files and stuff to print there. And that is like the Ancient Ruins set in particular. I want to say it's the second release of that. I had it pulled up. Is fantastic looking. Like, I'm so hype to get that set out. They had the core set Town Ruins is fine. It just looks like Azurite Ruins from GW to me. But their Ancient Ruins set is just enough similar to their half wall stuff that they did for their dungeon stuff that you could paint it similarly and multi-use it, right? And the thing that I love about the exteriors is, since it's made to be broken looking and like ruined, you don't have to do as much of the linking. Like I love the half walls linking and being able to actually contour out an entire dungeon with it, but I could use some freestanding terrain, right? Like if you look at that second set, it totally matches up with their dungeon set, and you could do that. And it actually matches with, you remember when they were doing their interlinked wall terrain for their monthlies. So
Right.
I could definitely make all three of those things interact and work together. And I think that's kind of where I'm headed. So I'm going to be trying to do a pretty big expanded Ancient Ruins dungeon set from that particular release, and probably go back and grab some of the half walls that I haven't got around to printing yet to go with it. But they have a really nice bridge in it. They have some platforms. So if I wanted to do an elevated multi-level terrain thing, because if you haven't picked up on it, I love dimensionality in combat.
You
Love
really do.
I
And
do.
honestly, it's a great thing because it's not used very much. And when you are used, this is one thing I hate about. One of the things I do hate about playing so much D&D or Pathfinder or similar games that are played on a grid is you start to, if you're not careful, you start to visualize the world as flat, gridded rooms. And this is one of the reasons I tell people the best thing one of the things you can do as a game master is to go play Dark Souls and pay attention to the level design. And start to describe your scenes like you would describe what you saw in Dark Souls.
Break line of sight, have dimensionality, so you've got multiple tiers. And like, because everybody's like, oh god, casters are so OP. I'm like, if they've got line of sight to throw their fireball the full range of the spell, sure, that's a really effective long range attack. But if you're in a 10 by 10 dungeon, that spell's a problem. And so like giving those situations where you actually recontextualize things, it changes. Like contextual balance is such a real thing, and a lot of that is tied to your terrain piece. And so if you build that out and create those complications, those caster classes maybe get the balance that like the martial. I hate, I'm so tired of the martial caster disparity arguments that have plagued our hobby for a gazillion years. But like one of the essential pieces in games where that, the marshals are like, oh, casters are OP. It's oftentimes because the casters are being presented in open field, and of course, same thing with an archer. A ranged combatant's going to start excelling in that same scenario, right? One of my favorite builds my buddy had was I have a class, a prestige class I wrote called Gyreblade, and the whole point is to take two special weapons classes and fuse them. And so they took this psychic whip class and combined it with like this Reaper class. And so they had their Gyreblade was a psychic whip Reaper thing that they could like shoot out to like 60 feet. And that character is amazing if they have range, right? If they're in a dungeon, they're just like any other, weapon specialist guy, right? And so, yeah, anyway, the dimensionality is huge.
Plays a lot of wizards. I'm scared the crap out of monks and rangers.
Yeah,
those are death sentences to wizards.
Monks because of the fast closing and stunning attacks, or why monks? Well, I'm curious about
high resistance, very fast on their feet, able to get in there and grapple your butt and shut down your spell casting. Okay, they're basically hard counters to spellcasters.
Yeah, if they're built right, that's for sure.
Yeah,
for sure.
And rangers, because of all the tricksy tricks they can do to put way more damage than I have hit points on me, no matter where I'm standing.
No, that's fair. It's fair. And then they often have a pet that can harry you in melee while they're shooting you with arrows.
Of course, yeah.
Well, yeah. Good times. What's your next future site?
My next future site is related to your future site. I really want to get my space better organized. So I'm looking through all the fun ways that you can get a hobby space organized in 3D printing. And there are so many options out there now. They're all pretty. They're all wonderful. Some of them are more practical. Some of them are less practical. So I'm looking for options for like good paint racks, good storage solutions, good box divide, like things to get my hobby space and make it much more reasonable. Because as I've made this, as this has shifted from hobby to profession, the amount of stuff incoming has exceeded my ability to deal with it. And I know this is a big first world problems, but when you have like full paint sets from manufacturers showing up at your door and you don't know what to do with them, and like it's just
Yeah.
in like hundreds of miniatures incoming that I'm not
Yeah,
printing.
absolutely. Yeah,
Like
absolutely. Like
I got a
even
box of like 1,000 miniatures the other day,
wow.
uh, and I need to take care of them and organize them and use them for very specific things.
Hmm. I mean, go you, but at the same time, I get it, right? Like you do have those moments where you're just like, I pulled down, my 12 Patreons or in sometimes 30, depending. And the just the reality of getting to all those files is just really low, right? So I get that for sure.
And I'm also trying to be very practical because some of this stuff out there is really cool looking, and like there's even like 3D print your own game table, the whole table, 6 foot by 4 foot, and it looks like Game of Thrones just erupted all over your play space.
Nice. Nice. I
And it'll
have
take you a year and a half to print all those pieces.
probably. It might look really cool when you're done though. I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah,
I'll
yeah.
I'll be honest, I would love if we're pie in the skying, I
Mhm.
would love to get that space whale from Dragon Trapper's Lodge printed.
Ah, it's so
But
cool looking.
that thing is so huge though, and just
Mhm.
like such a massive like undertaking. I'm like, I don't know if I can do it. But
I'd have to start a print farm because otherwise, y'all, like this podcast will just basically be I printed part 14B of
40, right?
Space
Yes.
Whale this week.
Yes. I now have the Ridgy eyepiece. Yeah, that's not gonna be that great.
Yeah. I got a suggestion here. Berto recommending the Paint Pal Studio. I'll definitely go check that one out because like I need this stuff to print fast and practical.
Right.
So like that's a balance too because there's like a lot of really cool miniature storage slash display case Kickstarters coming around lately. Um, and you can print this thing that looks like an awesome dwarf and it'll store 1 billion miniatures slash paint supplies slash your car. But it'll take like literal weeks and months to get most of it done if on a printer. And like you see the a lot of the cool YouTubers out there, like Uncle Jesse, is printing them, and he's like, "Yeah, I printed this on my 5 FDM super speed printers," and that's awesome. I'm super
Right.
glad he's able to do that. I would love
Right.
to have a print farm.
And be able to do that, right? For sure. For sure.
Yeah.
Ugh.
What about you? What's your next project?
Next
What you
one.
hoping to do?
I've started this project, but I have not given it my full love. And so I would like to do the following. I would like to do my multi-company, multi-aesthetic, biodiverse alien hive army. And I want this thing. I think is Oshino. I can't say it. They do an alien hive army release every month that is specifically aquatic.
Ooh, yeah,
And
you told me about
so
the cool conch shell ones.
they have conch shells. They have these like psychic jellyfish things that are really cool. They have this massive crab walker that's like a Carnifex crab thing, and just such a cool thing. And I was like, okay, these would be easy to take some of the OPR ones, take those, take a couple of the fan models from the I can't believe it's not Tyranids, and like kind of hybrid it into because that's the whole thing with like the Tyranid idea, the alien hive idea, is that these things are like bio like diversity unleashed, right? And that the hive tyrant or whatever your alien horde of preference is directed by can literally say evolve, and like the thing changes into the thing it needs to be, right? So if they're on like this aquatic world, it should not be a bunch of gene stealers, right? It should be fishy hive things, and they should like slither and whatever, and they should be able to swim and have air bubbles and all this garbage, like. And so I want that look. I want the idea that I can field like a 3,000 or 4,000 point army and have it be like all terrain, all environments, and maybe even like, I would love to be able to go to a gaming store with a big ass case and just be like, what is the board? Okay, the board is this. I'm going to build out the biodiverse response, the hyper, controlled evolution army to that terrain. And that would make sense, right? It's the narrative thing. And that's, my biggest problem anyways. I'm always obsessed with the narratives behind these things. And I lose the word game because I'm not focusing on the mechanics. Mm-hmm. But that's me. So I'm going to like drill into that. And I want this thing to be massive and like to have like stuff from 5 or 6 different companies kind of all fused into a painted aesthetic that makes them still look like it's the same hive. I don't know. That's that thing. It also probably means a second terrain project where I am like going through and putting a bunch of sci-fi stuff together, because you can't have big alien slathering slime chitin monsters and not have like dead space marines everywhere, right? You've just got to be like stomping the humies into, you know, obsolescence as their time and their age has been, you know, superseded by hyper evolution.
Well, if we're talking about army projects, I have a few army projects in the works that I definitely want to do. I want to finish my not my space rights. I want to finish my Ratman and get them, because those got prototyped, but they never actually got full production going. Because my undead's finished, my high elves are finished, the wood elves have been done twice, the orcs have been done twice. The Stormcast Eternals for Age of Sigmar got done, though I think we'll not use those for Age of Sigmar in the end. There's the cool army I'm working on with Younger Sibling, which is like all custom units and like being made using the Army Forge Studio, like a completely original army just for them. But I've wanted so long to just do a human sci-fi army, and I want to finally do it. Like,
when you say human, do you mean like Cadian? Like just like
I'm
guys
kind of talking like Cadian, Starship Troopers, grunts on the ground army to be used across a variety of games, and also to serve as awesome generic sci-fi folk for any sci-fi game I run. Like, even if I get some Starfinder in, just having a whole bunch of dudes in armor with guns is useful for NPCs and
That's
things
fair.
like that.
That's fair. My brain, of course, just says
used to print
victims.
Triceratops with the Triceratops sci-fi model that they made as an alternative to the Ogren for 40K, because that just looks really awesome, and I just want an excuse to have it. And I also want, and this is like, normally I would say this would be a skirmish force, but I want to print me some tanks. I want to print me I want to get some tanks and some sci-fi planes and some cool mechanized stuff. And I just want to flood the field with the freaking boots on the ground.
Nice. Okay, that's cool. Very excited.
Any other my next
projects? One? Yeah. Oh yes. I came prepared. I did my homework this time. I am likely. I have been asked more than once to, when I'm getting ready to do my next follow-up game, to do a couple things. First one, I'll split these because you might want to sort of something in the middle. Was my Saturday High Falls group, which I really, really love, has also asked that after that game winds down, I run Wild Beyond the Witchlight.
Oh,
so like full on Feywild Gonzo crazy. So this is going to be whimsical stuff. This is going to be me using Great Grimoire, you know, candy witch queens and like, you know, bunny people and like all the Feywild crazy that I can find. I also got almost all the official Gale Force 9 assembly kits. So I'm going to be looking to work with those aesthetics and make them like blend. But of course, I love my 5e people, but 5e monsters need to usually be like a little cooler, right? So like it's going to be bigger fights. It's going to be higher budget monsters. It's going to have like maybe some MCDM, Flea Mortals rules. It's going to have like, I'm going to dial it up because I'll say this, Wild Beyond the Witchlight, if you're not familiar with it, it deals with the Feywild. I'm saying that a lot. It's also got a ton of like old school nostalgia in it, but it also is something you can get through without actually fighting. That was the goal of one of the design team's goals, to have a potential non-violent playthrough. That is not going to be my players. My players are going to fight, and therefore my players are going to need harder fights than are presented in that. that story, right? Like there's going to have to be a little bit of augmentation. So the Gale Force 9 stuff that I was gifted for Christmas is fantastic. Thank you, Mikey, if you're watching this. But it's going to need to be enhanced, right? And it's going to need, yet again, more terrain. This is going to be a late, probably like fourth quarter project, because I probably won't finish High Falls until the end of this year, maybe, I suspect. But I want to be ready to just go at Wild Beyond the Witchlight very hard whenever I do that. So that is that project. I have another one, but I'm going to let you see if you have another one here in the works. But
I have another one, and this one's a little bit tangent.
Oh,
it's
tangent.
3D printing related, but less gaming related.
Oh.
Of my many hobbies, I do like to build scale models. And I've been interested in, I watch a lot of Abin Savage Tested, and I really love the garage kits that he gets. Like he does these episodes where he gets together with some crew and they talk about garage kits, and they get this like really cool sculpture that they like assemble out of cast resin, and like they put it together and paint it up nice and like get the airbrushes out and just like do really cool stuff. And there are a lot of display figures and display statues and stuff in the 3D printing world that is not meant for gaming purposes, but would make really cool decoration pieces for spaces. And so I'm wanting to try my hand at that for a little bit, like print out like a 12-inch figure of one of my favorite characters and like throw my painting skills at it to see like how cool I could get this hand, like how cool could I hand paint this. And part of this may be motivated by seeing how much these figures cost if I try to order them. It's just like, oh, if I tried to order a saber statue from Japan, it's $700.
Wow.
And I don't want to spend $700. I could paint a saber.
That reminds me of, I got a pair of dragons, 3D printed dragons, and I'm so happy I supported local artist co-op, but I paid a lot for them, and I'm like, God, I could have probably made these myself for relatively affordable, which you know, but I also would have probably had spaghetti on my plate because I suck at FDM. But yeah, that price point even, and that was even a 3D printed thing, but it was buying it from a very good artisan who had high quality work, and it was part of a local co-op, so I felt like I supported that artist. But yeah, $700, that's not happening, not in my current world. So that's a motivating factor if I've ever heard one. But is there any particular fig you're going to print, or just like general decor?
Oh, I don't know. I'll pick one. I've had my eye, like there's a Hestia statue that looks really cool, but it's kind of a Christmas themed one, so it's past season on that one.
Okay, that's fair.
And definitely look for some gray figures. If there's a cool gray one, I would love to have a gray.
Like the alien grays?
No, as in
or like Gray Filibuster from Fairy Tale. Like, who are you talking about? Gray?
Saberface Gray.
Oh, okay. Sorry, there's just a lot of gray in our nerddoms. Leave me alone.
The reincarnation of King Arthur, of course.
All right, fair.
Or like, I'm also like an X-Men nerd, so like a cool Scott
X-Men.
Summers or a Colossus would be great.
You go with Scott or Colossus over some of the other ones. Jeez, I just don't know about that. But I'll still respect it. Yeah, X-Men. Wow, that's a whole thing to unpack. I would love to do. I mean, I've talked about that before, just superhero minis in general. But do you want me to go to my next one?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so we've been talking about my tinfoil hat theory before. Everybody's heard my tinfoil hat theory at this point, right?
Right.
About Ixalan and Mystara. And so I am fully committing to taking the old Red Steel second edition stuff, which is Turtles, original Rakasta, which before they were Tabaxi, they were called Rakasta. You call them whatever you want. They're kitty people. They're adorable. And there's tons and tons of fantastic minis for them. Lupin, which are doggo people, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I want to do a like search for Ixalan, Mystara to Ixalan internal campaign, like the whole thing, but like hopefully a little less cringy than maybe second edition's version or first edition's versions were, because they were.
Maybe it's a good reason they're elseworlding it.
Yes, but I also think it's interesting because it might even be that they're saying they share the common Hollow World, but maybe they are different worlds, and I think that's interesting too. Because I was looking at the map for Torazon, and it's Alta Torazon, I think is the name of the vampires continent. And there's just so many good vampires. And again, I've talked about some previous shows, so I'm not going to like belabor every company we could talk about. But that vibe, the pirates, the merfolk, I really love the Mesoamerican influenced merfolk aesthetic. And I just really want to kind of dive into that and get that ready, because that will probably be it's going to take years to get ready for that game if I do it justice, right? I want boats. I want those, various factions presented. I want them painted in theme. And since I have art for all of that from Magic and a little bit from D&D, that means going and matching stuff. And that's not my wheelhouse. This. I am flow and go. Let's make the chaos, like shape into the thing, right? But like this is going to be actually trying to make them look like, the Dusk Rose Legion, and make them look like, the pirates from that area, etc. So it's going to be a lot, and I don't know if it could take years to finish that project. And honestly, I'm not even sure who I'll be running that game from. So that's going to be in the background of all this as well.
Okay.
Yeah. How about anything else from you?
There is one other thing. It doesn't involve much, if any. Oh, like here's a 3D printing one. I have another one that doesn't involve 3D printing directly.
Okay.
Though it indirectly will involve a lot of 3D printing.
Sure, I have one of those too.
But the first one is that I have made a very bad financial decision, and I went to my local gaming store and got into a weekly card game group.
Like Magic?
No.
Pokemon?
No.
Yu-Gi-Oh?
No. And not Lorcana either.
What? Blood and whatever it's called?
Marvel Champions.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, there's a surprisingly large and vibrant Marvel Champions group in our local area. And it's an LCG, not a CCG. So it's definitely going to hurt my pocketbook, but it's not going to kill it.
So kind of like the DC old box set card game where you just deck building, but you just got everything every time you bought a set?
Yeah, basically that. So LCGs are from Fantasy Flight, and it's like a CCG in almost every way. You get a deck, they have rules, you build and customize it, but the sets are set. You buy the expansion and you are guaranteed full play sets of every card in it.
Right.
And every card in that set, and you do not have to worry about rarity or randomization. So if I wanted to, then they sell both like big boxes with like multiple stuff and villains and stuff, or you can just buy pre-cons that have like, oh, I want to play the Colossus deck, and you buy Colossus, and it has Colossus and a full play set of every one of his cards and a full set of cards to support him. And of course, you can mix and match and customize your deck and build them however you want to as well, using those as your collection. So I'm really enjoying the game. Younger sibling is really getting into it too.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a local group that plays it every single Tuesday.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. That does present a problem because we podcast on Tuesdays. But
that could change. We're flexible creatures.
But like I want to flex some 3D printing because it's a game that does benefit from having really cool token sets. So I want to get a cool token set. Right. I need to see what's out there, and if it's not out there, I get to make it in Blender, and I'm kind of excited anytime I get to make something in Blender.
I do not have that skill set yet.
I would love to teach you this skill set. It's
I
so
would love
useful to
it, but
have
I've
it.
got so many new things I'm learning right now that probably
Mhm.
needs to be like a 25 situation for me. I don't know.
Mhm. And then of course I want to make cool little deck boxes that are superhero themed for each of the decks. Like, how cool would it be to like have like a deck box that just like look like Living Steel and pull Colossus out of it, or like Magneto's helmet and you crack open the top and pull him out. There's so much possibility space
I
you
mean,
can do
I
with these.
appreciate the deep nerd there, but like to me, I just hear like FDM printing project box. Like it took me so long to even get my first deck box printed that way. I was like,
Mhm.
I don't need these this bad. It was
I
really
mean,
cool.
we're only talking about deck boxes. The Saturn can handle it.
Oh yeah, but I mean, usually durability wise, a resin deck box is gonna, unless you use a special resin, I guess.
Yeah, I need to like listeners. I want your resin suggestions. I want to know what resins you all like to use. I'm gonna buy some Sunlu Toughness and see how that works. I'm really hoping to find a resin that I can just. I don't have to keep mixing in Tenacious and all that stuff. I want
Right,
just
right.
a solid. Pour the bottle in the vat, set the settings, hit print resin that is really cool because I just got a bunch of minis from Only Games,
Hmm.
and their minis are so nice. Like they're really, really crisp quality when they get them right, and they're whatever freaking custom resin they're using is ridiculous because it's super durable and bounces, and like they've managed to get like this perfect balance between really sharp details and also you can wiggle the sword and it won't break. And like there's got to be an answer out there for like a resin in a bottle that just works perfectly. And I know lots of people have said they have resin in a bottle that works this, and it's ABS 2.0 and ABS 3.0, but
Right, right.
and I'm only going to do this if like and you know what I don't want to do, which is as a content creator it might be my responsibility to do it anyway, would be the buying the 18 different bottles of resin and then 3D printing the same spearmint in 18 different resins and changing my
I
vat
mean, that
18
kind of
times.
is the way to do it, right? At this point, like I hate it, but I think you might, because okay, here's the deal. I can use resin that you can't, like that I get very satisfactory results out of for me, that
Mhm.
you're like, I would never touch that stuff, right? And vice versa, where I'm like, I will never pay that much money to have that, like, together a mini. Because even the stuff I did with, ABS, like really good, any cubic with Tenacious Mix, I still break that shit. Like
Really?
I do. It's usually just their sword. It's usually just their sword or their spear, but I
Mhm.
still have to glue it, and then I see the glue line. And even if I repaint it and fix it, it still bugs me. So like, really what I need to do is just get back to more mindful storage solutions, more mindful,
Mhm.
transport to and from events. And that is, that organizational piece is what needs to level up for me. Which brings me to my next project. If you're ready to
Go
hand
for it.
the ball back, I need to fix my printing studio. It's a hot mess. It
Mhm.
is. It is. I don't know about you, but pandemic era, I made a lot of really fast, easy decisions because everybody had big sad during pandemic era,
Mhm.
and I I didn't do due diligence maintaining that space, and so it has become intensely dysfunctional. Even more than, like, I have a lot of clutter in my house. I own that, but that particular room, like, it is dysfunctional, even more than like my office, which streaming people would probably make fun of me for saying. But yeah, there is there's a lot of work that needs to happen in that space, and maybe even evaluating just rolling it into my office entirely, right, and repurposing that space for something else.
Mhm.
That just needs to be deeply reconsidered, because right now it's kind of turned into a project dumping ground, and that is something that gets away from you very quickly, and then it becomes like a constant source of like dismay when you go in there and you're just like, the workload, I don't want to do this, right? So like it needs to be totally ground up, redone. um from tables, like that's another thing. If you're new this year to your printer, especially if you got an FDM, but even if you got a resin, if you have a bad table and bad stability in your room, or your room isn't level,
Mhm.
endless headaches, folks. Endless headaches. You're going to be compensating for that. Like I didn't realize how bad the desk I had, my FDM, my big one, the Mega X, because it's so big and it's swinging. It doesn't have that new software functionality where it's doing all the speed adjustments and everything, and so it shakes. And if I'm not paying attention, it can easily bork a job and just give me that spaghetti pile that I
How
fear.
big is your printer?
It's a big boy. I don't remember the exact dimensionality, but it's like six like it's six of the smaller plates. It's huge. It's big,
Oh
and
my goodness.
it's so big that it also doesn't heat evenly. So
Ooh.
I have to run it really, really hot to keep the entire thing warm, which can cause problems where like the base will melt and warp. So like
Ooh.
it's got it's just it's an odd thing, and I've had to constantly adjust it because like if I'm doing like multiple small pieces, I can usually get away with it. But then if it snags on one of them, it'll hit all of them into each other, and that's a whole different thing. So like
Mhm.
it's just a lot, and I need a better setup for that there, you know. So
Yeah, I also need to. I kind of want to pull my printers in here into the game room,
mhm.
and so that I am able to more easily access them, and that can be more part of the space that they're used in. But that does present some problems because I don't have running water in the game room. That's a big issue. Um, I can set up RV style pump system to solve that problem, um, but that's a different issue. Um, but one there is a shortcut that will solve if you don't have nice tables. One of the things you can do to mitigate this will not work with your printer, Kristen, because your printer too big. You would theoretically it would work. You just would have to find the equivalent thing, but I do this with all my printers and it works fantastically. Where I just
Right.
go down to Lowe's and I get a
Yep.
16-inch by 16-inch paver that's
Hmm.
meant to be like a paver for your lawn to make a walkway in your lawn, like a nice stone paver. And then I go over to the rubber pavers and I get one of the rubber ones and I
Hmm.
go stone rubber printer. And it just basically makes this gigantic weighted dampening pad
Hmm.
so that the printer, no matter how much it shakes, none of that's getting to that table. There's just too much mass for it to move to get there.
Hmm.
And I can set that on I could set that on a folding card table and still get perfect prints.
Gotcha.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm. That's a really good solution, and I would love to see it, like pictures of it.
Oh yeah, sure. I can show you pictures of it for sure.
Yeah, you should.
And it works really wonderfully, and it doesn't look so bad either because it's like it's the little red rubber that's made out of tires, recycled
Hmm.
tires, and then like a nice little clay uh, paver stone underneath it, and huzzah! Printer work good.
Nice.
Mhm.
That is awesome. I think
What's your
that's
next
the
project?
episode. It's
Oh,
it's like a minute too.
okay. Darn it! I have more hopes and dreams that you'll
I mean,
figure
I
out
do
before then.
too, but like but that's a pretty big list. I already can tell you, I'm betting on 3 of the ones I talked about this year, but we'll see. We'll see. Maybe I'll surprise myself. Maybe I'll surprise myself. But do you have a last second? You said you still have something else. You got a minute. Can you get your last one out in a minute?
Well, the other thing I want to do is the thing everybody keeps poking me to do is do more painting stuff. And so got my little painting space and my little YouTube studio here and set a camera up. So I'm going to start doing painting streams.
Mm-mm.
I got
I
on.
know you said that once before, but if this is the year of Param, I believe in you. I believe.
Well, mhm.
All right.
These are all aspirations, not
Aspirational, yeah.
promises.
So we're not doing any resolutions. It's okay.
Hmm. Hmm.
All right. Well, that's probably the episode for this. If you have your anything you want to share with us that you're going to aspire to, we'd love to be inspired by you if you're listening to this.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, any shout out? No.
Oh, no, we're at time.
Yeah, I have no shout outs this week either.
So if you want to find more of our content, you can do so over at printyourgames.com and reach out to us on all the socials over at Usually Print Your Games. If you want to help the show out, the best thing you can do is give us a rating on Spotify or iTunes. And if you're watching us on YouTube, we would pretty much like a like, comment, and if you want to see more of us, subscribe. Until next time, I'm Jefferson J. Thacker, also known as Param.
I'm Kristen Sowers, also known as Seventh Mastery, and don't forget to use your screen protector.